Hello, everybody. It's Dave Neal, stand-up comic in a Love is Blind storyline. Actually, this doesn't just apply to Love is Blind. It's for reality TV in general. As you all know, we've been talking, some say ad nauseum, about the issue of mental health as it goes and pertains to reality stars and the contestants that put themselves out there and their character out there on reality TV shows. And now we have anecdotal evidence of sleep deprivation on the set. What is sleep deprivation? Is it only getting 5 hours of sleep a night, 4 hours sleep? I think it's anything less than what the average of 6.5 to 7 hours of sleep a night is. I think contestants should be given a full night's sleep when they're recording these TV shows so that they can perform at optimum mental awareness and the ability to make normal, rational decisions, right? Wouldn't you want to be able to make rational decisions while you're being filmed? That's the idea, right? Well, we've got a lot to get into in this video, so we're going to jump right into it right after this. Do me a favor, check out my Patreon if you haven't already and want to donate to my channel, patreon.com/Dave Neal. We are completely funded by ads on YouTube and also from your generosity. If you want to put some bread in the tip jar, patreon.com/Dave Neal, where I actually have bonus footage just for the Patreon. I've got a lot of bonus footage here. I have a 15-minute clip that I'm sharing with you guys from after my interview with Susie Evans. If you want to see what went down when we finished the interview, you can go check that out. All right, so we're going to continue this conversation. I actually interviewed Kelly Chase, which I'm going to have in its entirety on tomorrow's Bachelor Rush Hour podcast. Link in the comment section to subscribe to that. And then over the weekend, I'll have the video of this conversation. But I'm going to share what she said was the norm when it came to the amount of sleep that they received on her season of Love is Blind. But first, here is Jeremy and Nick making the rounds on the Claire and Emma pod. Love to see it. As you guys know, I did their podcast last week. And what I said was that reality stars need a union. Here's my clip, then I'll play theirs.
This is a huge industry. It makes a ton of money for the people at the top. And there are so many people now who are kind of going through these reality TV shows and then are sort of like tossed out the other end.
Yeah. And what Jeremy started, I want to shout it out. He started the You Can Foundation, Unscripted Cast Advocacy Network. It's interesting to try to pool some money together. Will it have much of an effect on future cast members? They'll always be able to find people. And that's the problem with that's why SAG was created. They were always going to be able to find someone who would work for free to star in a movie. Anytime there's something people want, you'll have kitchen staff getting exploited. It's every industry where...
Okay, so it's all about exploitation and trying to, create standards on set. That's what it is all about. Well, here's what Jeremy and Nick had to say after I went on Claire and Emma's podcast. Jeremy and Nick went on this week.
That's why we have to approach this from multiple angles. And the you can angle is forward looking, right? We really don't want to keep drudging up the past, although it's an important context and framing for why we're doing these things that we're doing, right?
Yeah, it seems obvious, right? Well, one of the commenters, Emma, as we read right here, said, I've been keeping up with this a lot and still can't believe the tantrum that Nick Viall had about this topic on his show. It shouldn't be hard to advocate for living conditions and mental health support, yet some people, I guess it is. Yeah, we're not talking about crazy things making you rich, just livable conditions. As I mentioned yesterday, I'm in the Screen Actors Guild. When I'm on a TV show or a movie, if I'm working on a union-run production, they have forced rest periods. So you can see it clearly laid out here. Studio Zone, the performer is entitled to a 12-hour rest period. Now, that doesn't mean that you go to sleep for 12 hours. That means if the TV show wraps at 7 p.m., you aren't allowed to work again till 7 a.m., which is like, well, most people have 16-hour rest periods. Most people work till 5 p.m. and don't work again till 8 a.m. the next day or 9 a.m. So it's not a wild thing that in the Screen Actors Guild, you have 12-hour rest periods. Now, there might be a time when you need to get a shot and you're on a location outside, and that 12 hours can then go down to 10 hours. By the time you wrap and take your hair and makeup off and go to bed and then wake up again, all you're actually getting is 7 or 8 hours of sleep, which I don't think that's asking for too much.
Right. But we're really looking towards the future. And we're like, look, we can produce reality TV that people still enjoy. We're dramatic people. Like we're human beings. We create our own friggin' drama. There's no need to produce this stuff in such horrible ways. So, I mean, the lawsuit was an important first step, and it's an important continuing step, and it's critical that we see this through. But we also have to look to the future, and that's why Nick and I decided to start the UCAN Foundation.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And again, the comments, the comments are just so reasonable. Go further. Reality talent needs a union, and the archaic practice of taking advantage of people just because you can.
And what are the specific aims of UCAN? Like, tell our listeners, what is the goal of this organization?
So there are 5 things that we are offering as a service to reality TV contestants, whether they're cast, whether they're in production, whether it's post-production, whether it's post-show. We want to make sure that you have adequate mental health support, and we will continue to advocate for that. We will offer services with legal volunteers that will help you review your contract so that you understand what you're getting into. We will make sure you understand your rights as a human being, again, using our legal network. And then we're also putting together a network of cast members that have all been through this, because we can only relate to each other. Nobody else can understand what we've gone through. So we want to put that together so that there's like a safe environment for people to communicate and not feel so isolated and alone. And then we want to be able to offer legal support in the event of a dispute, which maybe I'll get to be the first person to use that. But those are the 5 main goals of what we offer right now. But our vision is literally to make sure that these simple 5 things are across all reality shows through, whether that ends up being public policy, whether it ends up being, labor laws, unionizing. We'll see where we go when we get there.
There it is. So the idea that a labor union could be formed for reality TV is not that far-fetched. And we have seen therapists come together. As you guys know, Dr. Diane Strakowski has been on my channel dozens of times, I think dozens, right? And we've talked a bunch about mental health. She is now teaming up with Dr. Isabel, who is one of the founding therapists over at UCAN Foundation. And here's what they have to say.
Did you know there's a dirty secret about reality dating shows? Behind the scenes of your favorite shows, cast members suffer from negative mental health consequences. Hi, I'm Dr. Diane Strakowski, the Back to Love Doc.
I'm Dr. Isabel Morley, collaborating with Dr. Diane. I'm on the board of the UCAN Foundation, which stands for Unscripted Cast Advocacy Network. UCAN wants to change that some cast members are treated poorly, exposed to inhumane working conditions, and because reality TV is a largely unregulated industry, it's the Wild West of entertainment.
And while UCAN is in its infancy, the problems have been historic. And for those who say, you knew what you were getting into, you went on the show for followers. They're just salty they didn't get more airtime. Well, UCAN is not for you, because UCAN is about the vulnerable people who are left worse from their experience.
And speaking of vulnerable people, what's interesting is that Dr. Diane Strakowski has actually been on Nick Viall's podcast. So he has actually used her through interviews to discuss mental health issues on the show. And just that's another reason why it's surprising to me that he would be so dismissive of the show. But I tell you this right now, if and when he comes around to the foundation, I will be nothing but supportive of the sort of ability to change your mind, admit you got it wrong, and things like that. All right, so congrats to Dr. Diane Strakowski for joining in on the fun, which is helping get support for reality contestants. And speaking of reality contestants, we've got Kelly Chase here. We did this interview yesterday. I'm going to air it in its entirety on Bachelor Rush Hour tomorrow. Again, link in the comment section, bachelorrushhour.com, the hit afternoon entertainment news podcast. But here's a clip of her just explaining how the sleep actually works on set. How are you sleep deprived? Do they just tell you when you can go to bed? Are the beds in a separate set from the rest of the studio? How does that all work?
Yeah. So yes, we slept at a hotel. They did have a sleeping like arrangement for us. That was just like right outside the set, from where the pods were, but it was not conducive for 15 girls to sleep in. So they put us up in a hotel, which was so much better, but it was like, I want to say it was like a 30-minute drive from where we were. Or it was just so late. It felt like 30 minutes. I don't know, but it felt like a while that we were in there. But sometimes like if we did the pods for 8 days in a row, I would say half of that, or maybe even 5 of the 8 days, we were filming until like 1:00 in the morning, 1:30 in the morning, and we had to be back on set at 8 a.m.
So let's do the math here. If you're filming till 1:30 in the morning with a half-hour drive, that means you get back to your hotel at 2. You got to take your eyelashes off, do your hair, wipe your makeup. But trust me, I can estimate from my wife, who's not, I would say she's takes the average amount of time to get dressed and undressed. I'd say at bare minimum, another half hour of undoing your makeup and getting ready for bed. Now we're looking at 2:30 in the morning. Let's say you're asleep by 3. You got to be back there by 8, which means you have to leave at 7:30, but they probably wrangle you together at 7, get everyone together. That means you're probably up at 6. So you're essentially sleeping from 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. That's 3 hours of sleep. Is that fair to say that you're going to get 3 hours of sleep in that turnaround period? Again, Screen Actors Guild, we have a rule in place for a 12-hour turnaround. They're getting a roughly 6 to 7 hour turnaround. A lot can happen in those 6 hours, that difference of time between when you should be getting healthy amounts of sleep and not. When you sleep and when you're entering your deep sleep, I'm not a sleep expert, but you're restoring all of the chemicals that get imbalanced throughout the day, and you're building, we all know that feeling of being refreshed. Research shows that Americans are chronically sleep deprived. Adults should sleep 7 hours or more per night. Almost 1/3 of Americans regularly get less than this recommended amount. And if you're not getting that amount, guys, this is your health and your life at stake here. This fatigue inevitably bleeds into the workplace, with one study of U.S. workers discovering that almost 38% of employees experience fatigue while at work during the previous 2 weeks. Trying to work while sleep deprived can significantly impact job performance. Without enough sleep, processes throughout the body work suboptimally. Neurons in the brain become overworked, impairing thinking, slowing physical reactions, and leaving people feeling emotionally drained. These short-term side effects of sleep deprivation can wreak havoc on a day's work. And again, that's just a normal day's work, the normal 8-hour workday. What we're talking about here is them essentially admitting that they're working from 8 a.m. till 1 a.m. And you might not consider it work, but the damages are done to them because long term they have to live with the edit. They have to live with how they came off on a TV show, or if they rolled their eyes or became a villain because they did something they wouldn't normally do. We've all seen the Snickers commercial. You're not you, eat a Snickers. Now again, and again, when you lack sleep, your body craves sugar, which isn't even healthy for you, and all these other things that go down. So very easy to see the problems that exist here, and the reason why what they're asking for is not a wild and crazy, make us rich, be entitled, buy us tickets to Coachella, and all these other crazy things that they've been accused of asking for. They're just asking for some solidarity with other alumni, people who have been on the show, to help join arms and try to demand a work situation that's a little bit better. Hey, how about this, Love is Blind? How about film till 8 p.m. and then start the next day at 8 a.m.? As was mentioned yesterday, I'll pull up the reel here. As was mentioned by Nick Thompson yesterday, they have multiple TV crews that work. So they have multiple, let's see if here it is here. They literally have multiple sound engineers, multiple cameramen, and they take shifts because they're working so many hours because they have a union.
The Writers Guild of America, or the WGA, went on strike. Well, why does this matter? History shows us that when the WGA goes on strike, there's an increase in reality TV production. Wondering why? It's because while crew members all have unions, or mostly have unions, the cast of reality shows are unrepresented and therefore can work mass amounts of hours for far significantly less wages. This all combined makes reality TV much cheaper and easier to produce, especially during a strike. In my experience on Love is Blind, the only time we got a break was for an hour or so while the union day of the crew ended and they swapped out for a brand new crew because they had maxed out their hours for the day.
All right, so there you see it, folks. I mean, it's not a crazy scenario here. Just getting some sleep and having some access to lawyers who will review contracts and fight when there's any injustice. Those are simple things, and I see a world in which the Screen Actors Guild could entertain collaborating with UCAN and maybe advising them in what they can be asking for. Just because someone goes Screen Actors Guild, like my name's Dave Neal. If I work in a movie where I play a character named Tom, it's covered by the Screen Actors Guild, assuming it's a union film. But if I play myself, say on Access Hollywood, they interview Dave Neal, I'm not covered by SAG necessarily. So it's a little bit arbitrary that if I play somebody else, I'm covered, but if I play myself, I'm not. Can we expose some light onto how ridiculous this is? Why don't they all team together? And if you're on TV, whether it's streaming or video on demand or network, broadcast, whatever it may be, why don't we work together to protect ourselves from the exploitation? Wouldn't that be the American thing to do? I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Leave a comment. We'll be back with more content after this. And don't forget the afternoon podcast, Bachelor Rush Hour.